Have you ever been feeling super creative, ready to sit down and do some art, but all you need is just a little bit of inspiration? And before you know it, you're feeling anxious, frustrated, overwhelmed, and in a worse place than you were when you started. Well, of course you have. I have. And I'm pretty sure so has every single creator on the face of the planet. What I'm talking about is a lot more difficult to deal with than simply not knowing what to paint, what to draw, or what to create. It's even bigger than feeling overwhelmed by the size or scope of the project you have ahead of you. While I'm sure it goes by many different names, I like to call it digital creativity paralysis. So if you find yourself frustrated, anxious, overwhelmed, or procrastinating and not doing a lot of creating, you might be a victim of digital creativity paralysis. So where exactly does this awful phenomenon come from? Well, I believe this problem is based in 3 root causes. The first one I like to call Hotel California. When you're looking for creative inspiration, what's the first thing you do? You hop onto Pinterest, YouTube, Instagram, or TikTok. Well, there's absolutely nothing wrong with this intention in itself. What you don't realize is that these platforms are designed to hold your attention for as long as possible. This is because these platforms gain their revenue by your attention. Ad sponsors and products gain more traction the more you see them. I won't bore you with the details about ad revenue and product placement, but the bottom line is it's their goal to keep you on there as long as possible. And because of this, creators of content on all of these platforms are incentivized to keep your attention on the platform for as long as possible. Those who are able to retain your attention for several videos are rewarded. As a consequence, these platforms and their content are actively working against your creative expression by keeping you consuming rather than creating. So this is why you get all pumped up to do an artwork, you head over to TikTok, YouTube, or Instagram, 30 minutes later you're feeling frustrated, irritated, and in a worse place than you were before. The second cause is what I like to call inspiration fallacy. What this means is basically we feel like we can get inspired by observing somebody else's creative process. And while this may be true to some degree, it's the equivalent of charging your phone to 100% with some off-brand charger, and although it was completely full, the battery drains in half the amount of time. I believe that this form of inspiration is not sustainable because it doesn't come from you. It's almost like a cheap imitation of inspiration. The third thing is that social media is all about flaunting prestige, beauty, and skill. It's everybody's prerogative to make everything they do look as easy, effortless, and perfect as possible. More often than not, you will see hours of effort or years of struggle condensed into a few short seconds. This is just simply not realistic, as subconsciously this causes you to compare yourself to the unrealistic standard being set before you. And before you know it, with all your good intentions, you're sitting minus 50 creativity points and you don't feel like doing any art anymore. And you're kicking yourself, asking yourself why you are not further along in your art career. Does that sound familiar? Now, like I said, I know all of this because it happens to me fairly frequently. I believe it's a huge byproduct of the instant, unlimited information we have access to through the internet. But as an artist or aspiring artist, there are a few things you can do about this. I recommend grabbing a pad and a pen and taking some notes, just so that you don't forget before you click on the next video. The first thing I like to do to overcome digital creativity paralysis is I like to use the 50% rule. Basically, the idea is that you should spend 50% more time creating than consuming content. What this looks like is if you are doing an hour and a half of creation, you should cap your content consumption to an hour or less. Now, this isn't a hard and fast rule. It's just a good way to get yourself into the habit of creating more than you consume. Just remember, it doesn't matter how good your idea is if you never do it. Rather do it, even poorly. I know that sounds controversial. Rather do something poorly and learn from it than paralyze yourself through endless inspiration loops and never get anything done. My second tip is to begin curating your viewing experience. Try your best to unfollow or avoid content that doesn't align with your creative interests. Just remember that there is an algorithm studying your viewing behavior and trying to provide you with more of what it thinks you like. The more you indulge things you don't like, the more it's going to give you those things. The converse is true about things you enjoy. Make sure to interact with that content by liking, sharing, commenting, or saving for later videos that you enjoy. These all go a long way to helping the algorithm give you more content that is helpful towards your creative goals. The third thing is be honest with yourself. Is your inspiration search merely veiled procrastination? Do you have an idea that you could already put into action? And if the answer is yes to either of those questions, you should do it. The fourth tip I have for you is utilizing micro habits. This has been particularly helpful in my life when I felt stressed or overwhelmed by a huge project, and that stopped me from starting. Just remember, you don't have to do it all in one sitting. You don't have to approach the entire piece in one go. You can break it down into small, manageable chunks. This is actually just one of the most profound psychological tricks you could play on yourself. It's much easier to commit to 10 short minutes doing a painting or drawing or whatever creative outlet you've chosen than it is to say, I am going to approach this whole thing. Now, the best thing about these micro habits is if you commit to 10 minutes, and after 10 minutes you don't feel like continuing, that's great. That was the plan all along. You've accomplished something. But If throughout that process the creative juices get going and you start to feel like you want to do more, that's a great opportunity to indulge it. A lot of the time, artists are afraid to bite off more than they can chew. So my advice is, take a small bite and see if your appetite returns. My fifth and final tip is to ask somebody to help keep you accountable. Now, I'm not saying that they should be hounding your every move. I just recommend finding somebody who you can tell your goals and the timeframes you are hoping to accomplish them in. That way they can check in on you, ask about your progress, and even encourage you if you're in a bit of a slump. Well, there we go. Now you understand the problem, you know how to fix it, and now there's nothing left to do but just go and create. If this video spoke to you and your situation, I'd love to hear about it in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed this video, please give me a like. It goes a long way to helping me know what kind of content you guys like to enjoy. And now, I think I'll leave you with that. I'm gonna go do some art.